Hey family, welcome to week 19 of your GKIS app. So, you know how it's difficult to do homework and only do homework? There are lots of other activities you can do on screen. And sometimes you have to do homework with a group on screen or on Zoom with your teacher or whatever. And maybe there's been controversy at your house about what's okay to do at the same time as homework. I know there has been at our house, and I'm even a little confused about if I do too many things at once. It's called multitasking. So, multitasking is when you're doing one thing and also shifting to another thing and then shifting to another thing. So, anyway, I'm going to be talking about what the psychology research says about multitasking to make you the most efficient learner possible, and maybe to help you and your family agree on some points about what's okay at homework time. So, here we go. Okay, so multitasking. So you see here that my model, who was my daughter's best friend once upon a time, well, they're still best friends, but now they're adults. Anyway, she's sitting here and she's got the TV remote in her hand. She's got the laptop. The dog wants her attention. She's drinking some orange juice. And oh, yeah, those notifications on her phone from her Instagram or from other social media platforms and texting. This is how we live these days, right? Like our brains have to be aware of several things at once in order to get things done. So I'm going to call that, for the purposes of our discussion, multitasking. So, what is multitasking? Well, the truth is, it's a myth. Our brains don't do things at once. Well, we can do some things at once, but if the two things involve the same cognitive resources, then what we actually do, rather than have one big wide mental pipeline where we take in everything at once, is we toggle back and forth. So, for example, if I'm reading for homework and the TV's going and I need to listen, those both involve our language center. And so you can't listen to the TV and read simultaneously. What you're actually doing is toggling back and forth between tasks. Maybe you're toggling back and forth so quickly that you're not aware you're doing it, but that's what you're doing. And there is a cost to toggling between tasks back and forth like that. So one of the costs of toggling back and forth or multitasking is fatigue. In the psychology laboratory, we found that when people multitask, they get a lot more tired, they get a lot more irritable, and as a result, they can find learning punishing instead of fun. Another thing that happens is that performance suffers. Now, if you're in the lab and you ask the subject, hey, you just multitasked, how do you think your performance was? They'll say, I did better multitasking than I did doing one thing at a time. But in fact, they're wrong. Not only did their performance decrease, but it took them longer to do the task. But what's interesting is that people do not have an awareness of that response cost. They think they're actually doing things faster and better when they're actually doing things worse and taking a longer time. Another thing that suffers when people multitask is they start to lose sight of what's a priority and what isn't. They find that a notification from Instagram is just as important as an email or just as important as memorizing for a test. Things that come in on the screen hijack our attention and increase our arousal in a way that's rewarding. And as a result, some rewarding tasks seem more important than the less rewarding tasks, even though they're actually a waste of time compared to the other. Now, interestingly, 2% of the population is a supertasker. So what is a supertasker? A supertasker is somebody who can go back and forth and multitask without showing a decrease in performance and without taking longer and without getting fatigued, irritable, and feeling punished. But only 2% of the population are supertaskers. And unfortunately, the 98% of us who aren't, we think we're supertaskers. So the way supertaskers differ from everybody else is that during their downtime, they take especially good care of their brain health. Supertaskers tend to sleep more, get more nutrition, get exercise, And they do mindfulness techniques like meditation. Go figure. So it turns out that if you take really good care of your brain, it's possible that you can multitask better than if you don't. So in your handouts, I talk about some of the things involved with multitasking. It's from Screen Time in the Meantime. I go more into the details of why our brains have a hard time competing for cognitive resources and how to get A's at homework instead of C's, D's, or F's. I also include some ideas for multitasking games. So your family exercise this week is to play some multitasking games. And while you're doing it, observe how your brain works. Are you able to do two things at once, or do you catch yourself toggling back and forth? So there you have it. Now you're experts on multitasking and how to make learning fun instead of punishing. And as a special gift today, I'm also including a presentation, which is a special slide presentation that talks about how to study best according to cognitive science. That's one thing I got really good at in college and graduate school. And now as a university professor, I teach my students how the brain works and the best way to absorb information so you can retrieve it successfully at test time. So hopefully that's helpful to you, and I'll see you next week.